Who stuck around, welcome back. For those who are joining us now for the energy briefing, thank you for coming. Sorry, it's been a long day, folks. My name is Nicole Marin. I am the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute's Director of Programs and Internships. Before today's programs, I have a few items to discuss. First, we ask you to help us share the speaker's points of view as well as your own. So please be sure to follow us on Instagram and X at the CHLI. After each panel discussion, there will be time for Q&A, so stick around for that as well. The discussions, including the Q&A, are being live streamed through FIU in DC's channel. It will later be uploaded to the CHLI YouTube channel as well if you wish to come back to our program to watch it later. The discussion is also being recorded, like I said, so you can view the program again later and share it with others. I would also like to take a minute to promote one of our partners, Catch Skills. Catch Skills is all about making learning count, no matter how or where it happens. We all pick up skills in different ways, on the job, through learning, in school, or even from everyday experiences. The problem is a lot of that learning isn't necessarily officially recognized. Catch Skills is here to change that. It's a platform that helps people track and showcase their skills, formal or informal, so they have a complete picture of their skill sets. Catch turns everyday learning into skills that drive growth. Throughout today's program, please feel free to scan the QR code you will see on this side of the room so that you can track what you are learning during today's discussion. It will take you to the Catch Skills website, and it will also give you a pre-written prompt to help you expedite the process of entering what you've learned throughout the discussion. Now, to kick off the program, I'll pass it on to CHLI's President and CEO, Marianne Gomez-Horta.
Yay! As you can see, Nicole is much taller than me. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you all for joining us. The Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute is the premier organization founded by members of Congress to advance the Hispanic community's economic progress with a focus on social responsibility and global competitiveness. Founded in 2003, CHLI is a 501c3 nonprofit and the only bicameral, bipartisan, Hispanic-led and Hispanic-serving nonprofit based here in Washington, D.C. We are dedicated to fostering a broad awareness of the diversity of thought, heritage, interests, and views of Americans of Hispanic and Portuguese heritage. I would like to recognize a couple of people here, our board members. A couple of them are going to be on the panel as well, but I do want to take the time to recognize the Honorable Bill Forrest, who's on our board. Thank you very much. He was also on our board when he was in Congress. Debbie Marshall with Chevron. Thank you so much as well, Debbie. And you'll get to also hear from the Honorable Ileana Ross-Layton, our chairwoman here. I like that they're all in the front row. And also Yvonne McIntyre with Pacific Gas and Electric, known as PG&E, also in the front row. Thank you. And I'm checking to see if we have any of our advisory council members. I don't see them here, but there is another group of people who I need to call out here, and that is our fall Global Leader interns. So they have been here for this semester. They spend 2 months on the Hill, and then they spend 2 months in a corporate office. And so anybody here or watching us virtually, if you're interested in one of the CHLI internship programs, you can basically go on our website. Nicole's information is there, so is mine. So you can reach out to us. We'd love to have you here as an intern. And before that, before I keep going on, I'd like the interns to please stand to be recognized because they finished their internship this Friday. Take a look, these are all going to be our bosses someday. So we just got to know who they are now. Okay, thank you. Also, a special shout out to our policy briefing sponsors. This is an annual briefing series that we have, so we want to make sure we recognize everyone. Amazon, Capital One, Charter Communications, Chevron, Citi, the Coca-Cola Company, Dell Technologies, Dominion Energy, Edison Electric Institute, Gates Foundation, Opportune, Pacific Gas and Electric Company, Pfizer, ServiceNow, and 2024 Media. Thank you all for your support this year. I also want to thank and recognize our team. You see them all here helping. They're the people looking super nervous. That's the team. It's Nicole, Bree, Angela, Sofia, Andres, Stephen, Bruce, Talise, Asa, Mercy, Tia, and Maite. Thank you all for your help for this briefing. I also want to continue just a little bit here on the briefing policy series itself. This is a platform for an in-depth conversation dialogue on current public policy, issues that affect the U.S. Hispanic community as well as the Portuguese communities here. We do our best in these briefings to educate and inform members of Congress, their staff, and the Hispanic community across the country. Today, we'll be discussing energy and how to balance innovation, reliability, and affordability. We will learn more about these topics and how they are all connected. There are many times that we don't pay attention to certain details in legislation because sometimes we think, that doesn't really impact me directly. But the reality is that even whether it's directly or indirectly, we are impacted. And it's important that we highlight some of the legislation that's important in our daily lives. And as I like to say every time in terms of energy, we sometimes take for granted we just turn a switch and then we have light. And so for some of us whose family grew up in Mexico and in other parts of the world, that's not always so easy. And so sometimes we take some of those things here for granted. So this is a chance to do a little deeper dive into some legislation and get different perspectives. Our guest speakers will provide different insights. Please take the time to listen to all their different perspectives. And now I would like to introduce our chairwoman, the Honorable Ileana Ross-Layton.
Gracias.
So come on here and stand here. Before she goes on, I always like to officially and formally,
please go ahead.
introduce her.
Add more to it.
There you go. I can add more?
Yeah,
Okay, that's
yeah.
dangerous. All right. So she was the first Latina elected to the U.S. Congress, where she proudly served from 1989 to 2019, including as chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. This is where everybody applauds. Yes. Congratulations. Born in Havana, Cuba, she built a legacy of leadership in foreign policy, Hispanic representation, and supporting women in politics. She now serves as a senior policy director. You're not vice president yet?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm just checking. I'm just making that announcement just to give her a promotion. Promotions are at the end of the year usually, so maybe that's coming up. And she continues to champion Hispanic and Latino leadership as the chairwoman of the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute. So let me pass that on to our chairwoman, also known as my boss.
Pretends I'm the boss. She's the boss of me. And then I go home and Dexter's the boss. Come on. I only have the dogs to boss around. But thank you so much, Marianne. Is she not a terrific president and CEO? Yes. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, everyone. It is such a pleasure to welcome you to Chile's Congressional Public Policy Briefing on energy and a whole lot more. Look at all that. The United States, our great nation, is working to strengthen our energy future, and the choices we make now will shape our economy, our competitiveness, and the resilience of our communities for decades to come. New and emerging technologies are opening the door to opportunities we could not have imagined just a few years ago. Artificial intelligence is accelerating everything from research to infrastructure planning. We are entering a new era of energy innovation. But progress also brings responsibility. We must ensure that our energy systems remain reliable and affordable, even as demand increases and the global landscape grows more competitive. Here at CHLI, our mission is to create spaces where diverse ideas can be heard and where inclusive solutions can take shape. Thank you to our speakers that we will hear from in just a few minutes. Thank you to all of you for joining us this afternoon. I look forward to listening to an engaging and forward-thinking discussion as we explore how innovation and opportunities can work hand in hand to build a stronger energy future for our nation and for these wonderful graduating interns and global leaders. Así que muchísimas gracias, and I'm going to turn it over to my boss, Mary Ann.
That's as athletic as we get, okay? This is it. Neither one of us are athletes here. So I have the privilege and the honor now of introducing the moderator for the discussion. So let me just look through my notes here because, no, I can't say that. Hold on. Okay, here we are. So I would like to introduce our moderator, as I mentioned earlier, the Honorable Bill Flores. Bill Flores is a business leader, corporate governance expert, public policy advocate, and a frequent speaker on energy, which is why he's here, economics, leadership, and public service. From 2011 to 2021, he served as the U.S. representative for Texas' 17th Congressional District, where he played a key role on the House Energy and Commerce, Budget, Veterans Affairs, and Natural Resources committees. During his public service, he was widely regarded as a thought leader in shaping national energy policy and economic opportunity for veterans. Prior to his congressional service, the Honorable Flores spent over 2 decades in senior executive and board leadership roles across both public and private enterprises. His private sector career focused on job creation, economic growth, and delivering long-term value to a broad range of stakeholders, including public company shareholders, private equity firms, and institutional investors such as pension and retirement funds. He currently serves as the chair of the boards of ERCOT, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, and a company called Nauticus Robotics, which is listed on NASDAQ, and as a director of CO2 Energy Transition Corporation, also listed on NASDAQ. He's also involved with the Houston Christian University. He's a board trustee there at the university, and of course his role with the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute. He's also a member of the Strategic Advisory Board of Veriton LLC. He's a licensed CPA in Texas, and he holds a BBA in accounting from Texas A&M University and an MBA from Houston Christian University. He loves to share that he has 2 adult sons, 2 wonderful daughter-in-laws, and 4 amazing grandchildren. Outside of his professional pursuits, he's passionate about flying and snow skiing. Okay, so he's the athlete among us here. So please join me in welcoming Congressman, the Honorable Bill Flores. Thank you. Moderate from here or there, wherever you want to do that.
I'm going to start with from here for a second, and then after our panelists are all seated, then I'll join them at the table. Thank you, Mary Ann, and everyone for joining us, or thank you for the introduction. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and it's great to have Ileana with us again today. Ileana and I go way back, and, you know, it's hard not to love Ileana. It's a pleasure to be with you today as we discuss shaping the future of the U.S. energy landscape while balancing innovation, reliability, and affordability. Why is this so important? Energy, there are 2 things about energy that you can't escape. One, it's an essential element of life. Without energy, there is no life. It's just like air and water and food. If you don't have energy, you don't have life. The second thing is it's an essential input to the economy. Just like capital, just like labor, just like education. If you don't have energy, you have a low-performing economy or no economy whatsoever. So that's why it's important that we have this briefing to explore how the United States can strengthen its energy future by advancing emerging technologies while maintaining economic growth, grid reliability, and energy affordability. And as the chair of the board of ERCOT, which was brought in after Winter Storm Uri when we had sort of a grid failure in Texas, this is something I live with every day. This has become part of my DNA. We're going to examine how collaboration between public and private sectors can drive sustainable energy solutions, incentivize investment, and modernize our energy systems. The discussion will highlight effective policies, financing strategies, and regulatory frameworks that demonstrate how economic competitiveness and long-term resource resilience can advance together to build a secure and reliable energy future. Now, help me welcome our panelists. Debbie Marshall. Debbie Marshall has handled federal and international affairs for Chevron for 17 years. She serves as a lobbyist, one of my favorite, by the way, when I was in office, for the midstream business unit, shipping pipeline, which is shipping, pipeline, and supply and trading at Chevron, cybersecurity, and foreign policy related to South America, sanctions, and trade. Before that, she had a career on Capitol Hill, the Michigan State Legislature, and served as a federal government affairs lead for the state of Michigan, where she lobbied for the state of Michigan on behalf of funding and energy policy. Kwame Canty. Kwame joined EEI, the Edison Electrical Institute, as a political and external affairs team as director of external affairs in 2015, and since then he has been promoted to senior director. Now, who is Edison Electrical Institute? It is the trade association that represents the investor-owned utilities in the United States. And why is that important? Because those investor-owned utilities provide the power for about 250 million Americans. That's why it's important. That's why I'm so happy to have Kwame with us today. EEI is the associate. Well, I said that. Their members, this only says 220 million Americans, but it's 250 million Americans because I looked it up on ChatGPT a few minutes ago. and they hire more, they directly employ more than 500,000 workers. Kwame works on EEI outreach and education lobbying efforts to members of Congress. I bet that part's not very fun. National policy organizations, community-based organizations, and other key industry stakeholders. His background and experience working with a broad constituency base will be of great value add in explaining how the men and women of the utility industry work each and every day to power America. Jason Dela Cruz. Jason Dela Cruz currently serves as the manager of intergovernmental affairs team at Dominion Energy. Dominion Energy is a major U.S. Energy utility with millions of customers. He's responsible for leading the company's efforts in developing and maintaining relationships with non-government organizations at the state and national level. Jason joined the company in 2017 as a member of the Virginia External Affairs team, and in 2024 transitioned over to the Intergovernmental Affairs team. He's also represented the company on legislative matters with the Virginia General Assembly since 2020. Previously, Jason served as a legislative assistant in the Virginia House of Delegates and Virginia Senate. He also served in the office of the Executive Secretariat for the U.S. Secretary of Transportation, then with the Office of Federal Coordinator for Gulf Coast Rebuilding, created under U.S. President George H.W. Bush. Jason holds a bachelor's degree in political science from Virginia Commonwealth University. Yvonne McIntyre. Yvonne McIntyre is the Vice President of Federal Affairs for PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric, you heard a minute ago. PG&E serves Northern and Central California and has approximately 16 million persons that it provides the energy for. At this position as Vice President of Federal Affairs, she is responsible for developing and implementing PG&E's federal engagement and leads a team advocating for the interest of PG&E before the federal government and policy groups. Yvonne has had a long advocacy career in the power sector, working on issues relating to energy and electricity policy, energy infrastructure, climate change, clean air, and clean energy. She began her professional career working as an electrical engineer, so she knows how to make things work. It's always better when you have a lobbyist or an advocate that knows where to turn the screws and the switches. So she began as an electrical engineer in power plants and distribution system service centers, so she knows where the sparks are. Yvonne holds a Bachelor of Science degree in electrical engineering and a Master of Business Administration degree with a concentration in international business. So I'd advise our panelists to come up and join me at the table, and we'll begin our discussion. Can you hear me? Okay, the way this will work is I will ask each panelist a question specific to their country or the company or their area of expertise. And then after that, we'll have a couple of general questions, and then we'll have the really fun part. We'll save some time at the end to take questions from the audience, because I think that's where we as a panelist can learn a lot at the same time. So let's begin with the discussion. We'll start with Debbie. Debbie, why are you excited to be working in the energy sector right now?
There is so much going on in the energy industry, and what I've seen is, first of all, the conversation is changing, where we used to say it had to be an either or, and we focus it had to be either electricity or it had to be something in the oil and gas industry, or it had to be either renewables or oil and gas. And now we're talking about all of it, because the truth is energy demand is growing. We've all recognized that. You hear about it, about the data centers, but just think about your own home and how much more energy you might be using because of how many things you power. Think about how much you travel, and you've got to get there somehow, and something's fueling that transportation for you, whether it's a metro system or a car or a plane. So it's good to see the conversation actually changing. It's really exciting to hear people talking about it in a different way, not necessarily partisan, but really thinking about energy's role in the economy and how we can make sure that it grows. And I'm having fun with it, and I'm very excited about what AI brings to it, both as a place where we can grow our business and help power AI, but also AI that will help us with our technology to do our job better and cleaner than ever before. And I look at our company in particular, and we know that we're doing it better and cleaner than we have before. But we also know there's always room for improvement, and there are other things that we don't know. Even things like drones are giving us an opportunity to have a better look at our operations and see how they work, see where there might be a weakness, inspect a pipeline that's very remote. So it's, to me, this time with all of this new technology and with all of the young people who are coming out with a different kind of expertise than what I had when I was in school, it's a really exciting time to look at the industry, look at it as a career option. Hint, hint to all of you. But to me, this is just an opportunity that I think is once in a lifetime to have a really full conversation about something that matters.
So is she excited or what? I can tell you, as a person that's in the energy industry, there's never been a more fun time to be in the industry. Kwame, given rising global competition and significant U.S. load growth, how can public-private collaboration help ensure that infrastructure investment keeps pace?
I think we need to really focus on working with our local communities around these efforts. I think oftentimes, and Yvonne may nod about this, sometimes companies and developers can get ahead of the local politics on the ground when developing data centers and other infrastructure projects. And I think getting ahead of that, making sure that the community is along for the ride with you, because not every technology, new technology advent sort of fits one community. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of environment. I also think there are different rules that sort of regulate different data centers and the like. And so working with your county commissioners, working with your local mayors and city councils to sort of set the table for the ground rules for how you want to engage. And ultimately that will yield results. I think in San Jose, for instance, there was a really big coming together around economic development and making sure that there was enough sort of generation to meet the demand in the community and that it served the community good. And I think those are the stories that we want to really lift up and exalt versus folks who are coming in on the back end and trying to explain to people that why you need this. I think that can go down a slippery slope. I think you want to get on the front end and make sure that the community is along for the ride with you.
That they understand the economic development and the economic opportunity that comes with
And the
those
tax
types
base.
and the tax base, exactly. That's so important. Jason, Dominion Energy often emphasizes an all of the above energy strategy. Can you explain what that looks like in practice and how it supports both innovation and reliability?
Sure. I'll give a quick synopsis of Dominion Energy. So right across the river, we are the largest utility in Virginia. We serve around 2 million customers, electric customers in Virginia and North Carolina. We also have customers in both electric and gas in South Carolina, and then we have facilities across the eastern coast and across the country. So we have Data Center Alley. Data Center Alley is in Northern Virginia, again, right across the river. About 70 to 80% of the world's data flows through that area, and that is in our service territory. So we have to provide a lot of energy to that area, both reliable and affordable. So right now we're in a kind of an opportune time across the nation as data centers continue to grow, especially in Virginia. So our growth, right now we sit around 24 gigawatts of load. We're expected to double that in 10 to 15 years. So how are we going to meet that load growth? And right now, I will take any megawatt possible. It does not matter the technology. It doesn't matter where it comes from. I need it on the grid because we don't want to be in a position where we're forced to do rolling blackouts or rolling brownouts. That's not what we're here. We're here to provide reliable energy 24/7, but also make sure that's affordable. So with that is the innovation. So I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more, but we're investigating and looking at an SMR in Virginia. So we have a nuclear plant that's been operational for almost 50 years. We have a site near it that we've been exploring since 2024. Hopefully we have some good news that comes out next year. But that's 10 years down the line. So how am I going to get those megawatts on the grid? We're also looking at solar. We're building a large offshore wind project off the coast of Virginia. We're looking at natural gas. Again, any megawatt I can put on the grid, I'm going to look to do it. It's going to take a lot of collaboration, but when you talk about reliability and affordability, it also means that if I'm generating this electricity, how am I going to send it to where I need it? So that means more transmission. But more importantly, it means hardening the grid, taking old transmission lines, old infrastructure, and updating it to make sure it is reliable. And just, again, you have to have the same conversation as you're doing all of this, that it has to be affordable too. Reliability and affordability go hand in hand.
If I can add an editorial comment there, when you're short that megawatt, he says he needs every megawatt he can get, and I think a lot of states are in that situation, and Texas is as well. When you're short a megawatt, the price of electricity jumps up really high. And so to the extent that you can get a megawatt from whatever source, that helps keep electricity affordable and also make sure that we live the lifestyle that we want. Yvonne, how is PG&E addressing affordability issues, particularly relating to meeting new load from AI and data centers?
So, affordability has long been an issue in California, so welcome to California's world, the rest of my brethren around the power sector. And because of across the board different reasons, a lot of people think, oh, it's wrong-headed policy in California, like adding, renewables and whatnot. So, yes, we do have some pretty expensive renewable energy contracts, but that's not the only reason. I think you all know the history of PG&E as well. We've had some pretty horrible disasters. We had a pipeline explosion, and then our equipment caused several pretty horrific fires. And so we've obviously spent a lot of money investing in our system to make it safer. We now have one of the safest natural gas systems in the country. And all the investment that we have made to reduce our wildfire risk, which including undergrounding power lines, increased vegetation management, system inspections, whatnot, we have reduced our wildfire risk by 90%. But again, that's all costs money. And so what we have been doing, we got a new CEO. She came in almost 5 years ago after, the horrible wildfire disaster. And she kind of came in, she had been CEO of CMS Energy in Michigan, but before that she had been at GM, so she worked in the auto industry. And there is a system called Lean Operating System that kind of championed by Toyota, really kind of adopted in the auto industry. She brought that both to CMS and now to PG&E. And it is a way to kind of really look at operational efficiencies and really kind of identifying issues from, the ground, from the start, so you don't let it get out of control, addressing them really quickly. So that takes care of some of the problems of, spending a lot of money in the future when problems do arise. And then really streamlining our processes, streamlining all of our kind of like from payroll down to just how we do our engineering. And so we have been able to dramatically reduce our operating expenses. And so we've been able to reduce some of the expenses that are going into our rates. We've worked with the state to take some of their public policy programs off of our bills. And so actually in this past year, we've reduced our rates 3 times over the past 15 months. So we've gone in the other direction that the rest of the industry seems to be going. And then there's a lot of kind of concern now. I think a lot of the blame on increasing rates have been put on, the growth in AI and having to meet all this new load from data centers. as an industry, and particularly in California, we've had stagnant growth and actually decreasing load for PG&E over the past 4 decades. And so all of a sudden, we're going to see this explosive growth. And so the thought is that, to be able to meet that need, we're going to have to, invest a lot more, new generation and whatnot. So in California, we see a different picture. Because we've had reducing load and reducing number of customers over this past 40 decades, any fixed costs and our operational costs get spread out among a smaller number of customers. So as we see load growing and we see more customers coming into the system, that means there's more customers to spread those fixed costs to. And so we see that for every 1,000 megawatts of increased load, we can reduce our customer rates by 1 to 2%. And so that's what we're kind of projecting. In California, the other thing too is, again, there's this thought that we have rolling blackouts and brownouts all the time. We do not. We have excess capacity on our system. We have so much solar that during the day we are dumping power. We're paying other states and other companies to take it during the day. And so we see that, and so our system is utilized about 40% of its capacity. And so, we just see a lot of opportunities to be able to meet the load and not pass those costs on to our customers. Now, eventually, if the growth becomes, I think we're projecting, after we get to beyond 5 gigawatts, we are going to have to add new capacity. So there are investments that are going to have to be made, but we still project that for our customers, for the state of California, we're not going to have those huge rate impacts that others are expecting due to increasing load from AI.
So we're going to start round two now, and I'm going to ask each of the panelists to keep their answers shorter because we want to have questions from you. But let me give you a setup for the next question so that you'll get an idea of the perspectives that the industry is facing. In Texas a year ago, in December of last year, we had what's called a large load queue where people wanted to interconnect to Texas to bring a data center or a plant or something to connect to the grid. That had 56 gigawatts of total load in that queue. Today, 1 year later, it's over 4 times that amount. So think about that. That's like adding 3 Californias to Texas. And it's just crazy. So the people that handle that have really gotten bogged down. And so that cues us up for the next question. That is, AI is transforming energy planning and grid operations. And so, Kwame, from your vantage point, how can electric companies leverage AI to strengthen reliability while keeping bills stable?
A couple of things. I think AI can help us in a couple of ways. Because of the quantum computing power of AI, we want to use it to maximize efficiency. And so predicting patterns so we know where load growth might be coming on our systems. We want to use it to optimize maintenance so we can see where problems are going to happen before they happen. And then lastly, we want to use it to improve like storm response. And so, obviously we use a lot of factors to predict weather in our business. We want to use that so that AI can be a tool to help us see over the horizon on our systems to see where we might want to deploy trucks and IBW and or our labor force to sort of mitigate those storm issues that come about.
Yeah, very important. Jason, following recent announcements, how's Dominion Energy integrating emerging technologies like advanced nuclear, like SMRs, into its long-term energy strategy?
Sure. I already talked about our load growth and what we're expecting. We have similar requests in a queue system like they do in Texas as well, and we're 60 gigawatts plus that we're just continuing to manage as it comes through. So for us, we have an IRP process, integrated resource plan. We release it every 2 years. It is a non-binding contract, but it's basically forecasting on how and where we're seeing our load coming from and how we're going to meet that load demand. So we just updated our IRP, and we're looking at SMR technology. We're looking at new technology for transmission. We're looking at more battery storage, long duration. I'm sure eventually hydrogen, not hydro. We already have hydro. So, I mean, that is really what we're looking at, but we're also being innovative. So, looking at virtual power plants, taking school buses that are pretty much sitting there all summer long and making them electric, and then we can use those as a battery storage, and we can aggregate that and put it onto the system. So, being creative in that way.
So Yvonne, we've heard a couple of great examples of how utilities are using AI. Tell us what PG&E is doing.
So we are already utilizing AI to help with wildfire mitigation, and so we have drones that are have AI capable cameras that. So our service territory is 70,000 square miles. A lot of it is wooded, forested, rocky, mountainous terrain. So it's hard to get to, and so being able to have drones go out there, doing system inspections, looking at, if you see they detect smoke and they can tell like, oh, that's a campfire. It's not a, tree that's on fire. And so, we've already been able to use it to utilize for wildfire mitigation purposes. And then and I think Kwame identified some of the ways that we can use it in our system. So system inspections, not just wildfire related, but we have sensors installed throughout our system that can detect, vibrations and deterioration. We're going to be using it to match, load and capacity, and looking at it for, there's when new load comes onto the system, and we're planning for that, you got a customer that comes and says, we need, however many, megawatts of power. And you kind of really figure out that they don't need it, 24/7.
Exactly.
And so, kind of being able to work with them to determine when exactly do you need it and what times do you need it, with the best kind of resource to get it from. And so there's a lot of different ways that we can utilize it to increase the efficiencies of our operations. We are the first nuclear power plant to use it to actually for data management, like records management. We are required to keep, millions of records, and then to be able to access it really quickly, to glean that information has shaved, hours and hours off of, personnel time to free them up to do other things. And so, it's just a tremendous resource and technology that we're going to be able to use for our operations.
Now, is this what we could call smart grid? I mean, using all these tools. I mean, isn't that
So
what
that's
PG&E
part
is?
of it. So part of it is considered smart grid. I mean, we're talking about using grid enhancing technologies to also kind of help increase capacity on the grid. And so I think all of us are looking at different ways to utilize different types of grid enhancing technologies, new things to squeeze more out of our current system. Like as we're all saying, we need as much energy out there as we can get, and it's going to take some time to get new energy resources into the system. And so how can we utilize our existing system and squeeze more out of it? And grid enhancing technologies and other types of new technologies that are coming out there are going to help us with that.
Well, Debbie Chevron lives in a little bit different part of the energy space from our other three panelists here. But how does AI? How do you think AI is important as we think about it in the energy space?
Well, it's just amazing to me the possibilities that are there for AI. When you think about our actual energy production, we can look at data analytics from seismic data, for example, and say, okay, we need to figure out the exact best place to place a drill to get what we can safely out of a resource. And so having that extra level of analysis that helps us figure that out is amazing. It also, we have to manage our own power as well. A lot of people don't realize that we create a lot of our own power in place for our operations. That keeps us off the grid, so it keeps us from straining the grid the way some other industry might. But if we're going to do that, we also have to make sure we do that in the most efficient way possible and the safest way possible. So it's giving us a lot of opportunity to look at our own operations and see where they work better. In terms of safety operations, this is really important. Can AI possibly detect a problem in one of our pipes before somebody else might figure it out? Or will it amp up our ability with the sensors that we have to analyze that data and figure out where we might have a problem in the future and fix it before it happens? To me, this is all super exciting because our most important thing is the safety of our workers and the safety of the communities that we're in. And so we can't deliver on what we promise if we can't meet that fundamental safety goal And I think AI is going to help us do that. And then just from a government affairs perspective, I have to go teach people about our industry.
Yeah.
And isn't it great that this week I said to AI, because I've been practicing playing with it, I said, please tell me what members of Congress have engineering degrees, because you know who it's easier to explain energy to? People with an engineering degree. So it helps
Like
you
your
kind
mom.
of figure some of this stuff out. But it can help you get a little better perspective. The other thing I want to mention is we're very U.S. focused in this discussion, but around the world, our partners around the world also expect us to use the best technology, use AI. A lot of them are spending a lot of time investing themselves in developing AI. So this problem of the power grid, that's happening in every country in the world in different ways. But like I look at our operations in Kazakhstan, which happens to be our largest oil production outside the US, they have a huge initiative in AI because they recognize that this is something that they'll be able to use, but they're also looking at their power grid and how they're going to be able to provide the power for it. So this is not just a conversation in isolation. And I think around the world, especially because a lot of these AI companies are in multiple countries, we're going to learn a lot from each other. That again goes back to my first point. Most exciting time that's been in the energy industry for a long time.
It's true. It's a time of challenge, but it's challenging times are the most interesting times. By the way, the AI search that Debbie used to answer that question used 10 times the power that a Google search used 3 years ago. So think about that. So every time you're using ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever, you're using 10 times the energy that you would have used 3 years ago with a Google search. So Jason, what policy and regulatory frameworks are most effective in aligning innovation with infrastructure planning during the energy transition into a cleaner and more affordable future?
Sure. Thanks, Bill. So I would say, well, one, Dominion Energy is an investor-owned utility. We're a vertically integrated utility, so we own the generation, transmission, and distribution, so all the way through. That is not unique. There's other investor-owned utilities that are like that across the country. There are also areas that are divided. They may own one or two of the sections, but not all three. And then in Virginia, and both in South Carolina, we have a regulated model. So we are a regulated utility. So we have to do what our regulator says. And anything that we propose, we have to go to our regulator. Why that's important is that anything that we propose has to be seen as reasonable and prudent, if you're going to get very technical with it. But more importantly is that they are balancing both what is affordable, but also what is going to increase reliability. It's also good and important that you have them and you have your regulator and you don't have anything that's holding them back and tying them back. So in Virginia, 2 years ago, they decided to kind of put more power to our regulator, our State Corporation Commission, remove a lot of the power that General Assembly was doing, which is great because every couple years, you might have a different makeup in that General Assembly, so you're balancing back and forth. So in 2023, it was the Rate Reform Act, and we put a lot more power to the SEC. Our State Corporation Commission, and any corporation commission, has a extensive staff, and they are extremely smart, and they know how to handle all of these issues and evaluate those issues, but they're also evaluating it with a non-bias other than make sure that this is necessary and this is also going to be affordable and it's not going to burden the ratepayer. I think those things are very important, and yeah.
Good, good. One of the things you brought up, you talked about how the power is switched back and forth in the assembly. Energy shouldn't be a partisan issue because we all need it. And so the most durable solutions are bipartisan solutions. Anyway, Yvonne, back to you. You were fairly candid a minute ago talking about the challenges that PG&E had because of environmental factors. What steps is PG&E taking to improve the resilience and reliability of your electric grid? You talked about some of that.
Yep, I talked about, on the wildfire mitigation side, but on the other side, and part of it's been mentioned, like with virtual power plants. So, California, it's very difficult to build anything there. And so, as I mentioned, like how can we squeeze as much out of our existing grid as we can? So as I also mentioned, there's a lot of solar, there's battery storage. So we've been investing a lot more in batteries because when the sun goes down, guess what? All that solar power goes away. So we make up the difference where we still do have natural gas generation. We have the one remaining nuclear power plant in the state. we have a lot of hydro, and so complementing that with battery storage is what takes us over until the sun comes back up. But the virtual power plants, again, because there's so much solar, there's so many batteries, and so many electric vehicles in our system, we're doing a lot of vehicle to grid testing so that we can then call on the customers, to provide power back into the system in times of constraint. And so instead of having to build something, we're utilizing what's already there. And again, AI is being helpful. Again, a lot of the vehicle to grid, and so we're just looking at all these different technologies, capabilities. We do an innovation fest every year, where we've come up with a list of kind of our problems that have to be resolved. So whether it's wildfire related, reliability related, resource, restrictions. So we have a lot of the tech and innovation partners coming in, make pitches to us, and then we fund them. We pick like, okay, this is going to be the best one to resolve this particular issue, and we work with them on bringing new technologies to the market and developing them specifically to address our issues, but our issues are becoming everybody else's issues. And so, we're doing a lot of just seeing what we can do to make do with what we have.
I heard something pretty cool about, I'm going to brag on PG&E for a minute. I heard something, because we used to have a common director on the PG&E board that was on the board of ERCOT. And one of the things I learned is that after the fire challenges that California had, PG&E decided to harden the above ground infrastructure, where Southern California, Edison decided to try to bury things, and they're still trying to get it done, and it's way more expensive, and it's having an adverse impact on customers. So it's just trying to think about, you all are innovative in that.
Yeah, so we've hardened overhead. We've invested a lot in vegetation management, but we're undergrounding too, and we made a commitment to bury 10,000 miles of our power lines in 10 years, and we just hit our 1,000 mile mark in October, and that's dramatically increased. But and I can get technical, but the way that you also, the types of ways that we configure our system now as well. I mean, our initial kind of reaction to, making sure we didn't cause another catastrophic wildfire was what we call public safety power shutoff. So when we saw that there was going to be a high wildfire threat day, we shut down the power. And it impacted millions of people the first time we did it. And so over the years, we've learned to what we do called sectionalize. And so, we put switches, so that we can shut off power to a smaller section, impacting less number of people. And that's, again, dramatically reduced. And like I said, we've reduced our wildfire risk by 90%.
Good. Debbie, back to you. What role do you see the private sector playing in accelerating investment in next generation energy infrastructure?
Well, if you think about it as a taxpayer, which all of us are, do you really want the government to guess what the next technology is? I think the answer is no. We have actually strategic investment groups that look at new technologies that are out there. A lot of these startups will have a really good idea, but they lack the money to get to the next thing. And so we as a company said, we can do this. And we've got a group called Chevron Tech Ventures. And we look at some of these new technologies that are out there and we go, that one looks really interesting. For us, if we invest in something early and it pays off, yahoo, we've got a new thing that we're making money on. But if we don't, our investors expect us to take some risk, and we're taking risk that is from our investors, not from the general public. And when you think about good government, that actually makes a lot of sense. Now, there are things that the government can do. They can do things to get out of our way on the regulatory front, and we're hoping that permitting reform is going to move this year because it's really important for literally every kind of power and anything you want to build. It's really important that we do that. But also, fundamental research from the government is used for a lot of things that we do. And so there is a partnership there, and we have partnerships with the national labs that are incredibly important. But they do the kind of research that benefits our entire industry, because we aren't not going to give our technology or our hints to the competitor. So you've got to look at it in that way. And I think that we are more open than ever to those partnerships. And then, we do partner with the other companies as well where it makes sense. But I think when you look at it, you just have to think about where you want to put your risk. And isn't it better to have companies that are smart and do this all the time, do the risk, than the average taxpayer hoping that somebody who may not be as expert on that thing makes the decision? So that's where I see it going. But I also think tax incentives are important. R&D tax credits are really important, because that, enables us. It doesn't mean that you're giving away the farm to a private company, but it is something that really helps companies go, okay, we can throw more money into that than ever. So I think there's a concert of policies that do it. There's never one solution, and I think for a long time we've kind of like, oh, we have to this way or this way, and we need to get away from that. We have to look at a concert of things that come together and create something that really works.
So next, Kwame, we've heard how Dominion uses AI, how PG&E uses AI, and collectively they have about 20 million customers. Your organization represents investor-owned utilities that have about 250 million customers. So if we could sort of take a higher macro view, AI is transforming energy planning and grid operations from your vantage point, from this really high level. How can electric companies leverage AI to strengthen reliability while keeping customer bills stable and affordable?
I think AI can be used, like I said before, to help optimize maintenance issues and see over horizons. But I also think, and not to get too political, I think you need a stable regulatory environment. I think investments in tax credits and loan programs from the federal government will help our industry provide, low cost innovation to customers. But I think we need to do it in partnership with state and federal government. And I think absent that, the burden falls on my members solely, and that's not a good recipe for anyone. And so I think hopefully as the year goes on and time goes on, we can get back to more clarity as to how we can use investments from the federal government to help drive innovation and economic development in communities without having the customers burdened with all the costs.
Good. I'm going to have a couple of rounds of questions here where I ask each panelist the same question, and I'd ask that you try to keep your responses to about 30 seconds or so, because we still want to get to the fun part with you guys out there. We'll just start at this end of the table. Kwame, how can collaboration between the public and private sectors most effectively drive the next wave of energy solutions?
That's a good question. I think, if I'm being honest, I think we need more frank conversations about what the needs are. Energy demand, water usage is going to go up because of this new technology, and how the government and our industry sort of partner together over the long term is going to be what rules the day. I feel, Frank, I don't have a really good answer for that. But I hope that in the future we will have more commonality amongst policymakers and amongst business and the business community to help get to an ultimate outcome for customers on behalf of communities.
At least better alignment versus
Versus
disalignment. Yeah. Same question, Yvonne. How can collaboration between the public and private sectors most effectively drive the next wave of energy solutions?
I think Debbie touched on what I had written down that I was going to say. So collaboration with national labs on new innovative technologies and helping bring new tech to scale, effective federal policies and regulatory reform, so permitting reform. But also, and in the name of affordability, it is very important that there continues to be an aspect of federal financing, cost sharing, because a lot of the stuff that we're doing initially is going to be expensive, and so being able to do these things affordably, it's important to have some partnership with federal agencies for financing.
Good. Jason, do I need to repeat the question?
No,
Okay.
I think you're hearing kind of a synopsis here, or like a same kind of tone as regulatory. I think the public, the government establishes regulatory in their regulatory systems, targets, things of that nature. It is up to private entities, utilities, in order to have that, meet that target, but also be innovative. So we need more collaboration, but we also need to have a regulatory system that doesn't burden our companies or other companies with unattainable goals. I think we need to be realistic, as Kwame was saying, when it comes to meeting this low growth, but also making sure that we're putting in protections to meet and protect the individual ratepayer, not just the big boys, if we want to call them that way. So I think that's going to be kind of an opportunity going forward. But I think utilizing AI, I find it interesting that we are building to meet the AI demand. And I'd like to say that we don't have a data center problem, we have a consumer problem. But we're trying to meet this demand while we're also trying to utilize AI ourselves to better our business.
Debbie?
So I will add an opportunity here, and that is for us to do education and for government to do education. We just need to understand where each other are coming from and assume positive intent. And I'm looking at the permitting reform discussions right now. I think we're in a better place than ever to have a real discussion about permitting reform, because we've all set aside some assumptions and come to it and said, look, we've really got to get our arms around this problem. We need to be able to build things. Yes, we need to do it responsibly, but we need to have a discussion that's not just about us or them or build it or no. It has to be, how can we build this safely and affordably and provide to the nation what they need the most and keep us competitive? The nature of the discussion is changing, but I think it starts from people assuming positive intent from whoever is on the other side. And there's not just one side, there are multiple sides to everything that's going on. But to sit down and really have a true discussion and be honest about, like, this is what we need to do. And yeah, it is going to cost some money, and some companies like mine will have to pay some of the money. You know, we are all like in this boat together. But when you think about it, the energy ecosystem, we used to kind of talk about it as just oil and gas or just the facilities. But PG&E and we're each other's biggest customers. So we need to kind of get our own clue.
True.
And then also educate people on that.
Yeah. Okay, again, I want to ask the panel to keep the questions, the answers short, so we're going to go through one more. So I'm going to give you an either-or question. So the first option you can answer, and we'll start with you, Yvonne, and go that way. How would you describe the biggest opportunities ahead for the energy sector? If you could highlight one element that would be the most essential to shaping the nation's energy future, what would it be? If you don't like that question, answer, what's keeping your CEO awake at night?
I will answer the second question.
Okay.
It's affordability and the ability to meet our customers' needs. And as we are facing, the increasing demand, increasing load growth, and after, like I said, 40 years of stagnant growth, of having a system set up that we're able to satisfy them. Kwame brought up San Jose earlier. They were talking about municipalizing. They wanted to leave the PG&E system. So we sat down with them. We have to understand kind of where they're coming from, who's coming on, what do you need, and how can we serve you? And so we're facing that in multiple different jurisdictions of our service territories, San Francisco, Fresno. So, these are the things that are kind of worrying us. And then, also attacks on the utility business model. There's this notion that utilities cannot meet this need. This growing need to serve AI. And so what can we do to kind of blow up the utility business model? We think that we are in the best position to do it.
So, Jason, one of two questions. How would you describe the biggest opportunities ahead for the energy sector? And if you could highlight one element that would be the most essential to shaping the nation's energy future, what would it be? Or what's keeping your CEO awake at night?
I'll not speak for Bob Blue, but I'll go with the first one. We're like in an energy renaissance. I mean, if you think about how we used generated and transmitted energy 15, 20 years ago, it's already different, and it's going to be different 15 or 20 years from now. So it's just the opportunity of being more innovative and looking down the horizon. You've heard a lot of the technologies, SMRs, virtual power plants, GETs or grid enhancing technologies. So it's just an exciting time to be part of energy, because everything that we're doing is for the future, but then we're also looking at that future will change in 10 years, change in 15 years. So I think it's just the innovation is amazing. I'm excited to see where we go. But I also know that, tying into the second question, it would be from our CEO, how are we going to do it and make sure that it's affordable?
Yeah, it's kind of like Debbie said earlier, energy's cool again. So, Debbie, how would you
Take the
just...
CEO question. I'll do it because.
What's keeping Michael awake at night?
Well, this is something I ask him whenever I get the opportunity, because it helps me think about what we need to think about in the DC office. And the last time I asked him, he said cybersecurity, but it's been a little while. So what I'm hoping is that he's having sweet dreams about AI and the potential for what it can do to help make our company even better than we are. So I hope that that's what he is dreaming about now instead of losing sleep.
Okay, very good. So we're going to end this question with Kwame. You represent companies that power 250 million Americans. So which one would you like? How do you describe the biggest opportunities ahead for the energy sector? If you could highlight one element that would be the most essential to shaping the nation's energy future, what would it be? Or what keeps your CEOs awake at night?
The first question.
Yeah,
Um,
that's more cool.
I would say like siting and permitting. If we have all this generation that we need to build out, but if we can't get that to the market or get that to the end users, then what is it good for? And siting and permitting comes with its own sort of bag of tricks because, you may want that KV line to bring that power to your home or your community, but when we try to come to stakeholders to try to discuss like how to adjudicate that, they don't want it in their backyard. They don't want to see it. I had one specific instance that I worked on where a university, I will not name the university or the city council member, but they did not want the KV line to go in front of the university sign, and where they wanted the line sited ran right through a Hispanic community, and he represented a more affluent community in Arizona, and so that was a back and forth. But like NIMBY issues around transmission are going to really, I think, take off on the back end once we sort of solve how to, pay for and proliferate more of the technology. And that's going to be a question that's going to really be solved not here, but I think locally. People are going to have to decide, like, how to, number one, invest, but also cite some of these projects that are going to be needed in order to bring generation online.
Kwame used an acronym called KV, kilovolts, 1,000 volts. And so when you see the big, tall, huge structures, those have thousands of volts from 118,000 volts to 765,000 volts. I'll give you an example of the NIMBY discussion. Texas approved a brand new 765 kV system this year. We're building like a whole new interstate highway system, but for electrons. It's going to cost about $34 billion, and it should be built out in the next 5 to 7 years. And so, of course, the NIMBY problems come up, and now we've got a new term called NOPE, not on planet Earth. Anyway, so now we're going to appreciate the panel for those thoughtful answers to the questions. Let's open the floor up for questions, and we'll have a CHLI team member bring the mic up.
Thank you. I really have enjoyed your presentation. I really appreciate it. I'm Fred Pfeffel. Has been a year since I left the Department of Energy, so I can really appreciate a lot of the subjects that you have mentioned. I was senior advisor to the Secretary on many of the issues. I now have I'm now in the private sector, founder of EPS, Energy Partner Solutions, and I'm also senior advisor to Hispanics in Energy and have been for a while. So my question, I have two, but I'll start with the one, which is, what is it that your companies are doing, your groups are doing to accommodate the needs and the impacts that the new technologies, the new demands are having on local communities? Let's start with that one.
Okay. Who would like to tackle that? I see the volunteers starting.
So, and I guess in what ways do you mean? I mean, I think the biggest impact people are seeing is affordability, right?
Uh-huh.
And again, so for us, I described like everything that we're doing, like regarding trying to get our rates down, but we also have like a plethora of programs, special rate structures, special packages. We utilize the National Light Heat Program. So we do what we can to ensure that our customers are on the right rate plan, that they're aware of the services and the help that we offer, and what else is available out there in the community to help them pay their bills. And as far as, again, the other kind of issues of interconnection, I also talked about that, of just sitting down, really kind of getting deeply involved in the communities to see what their needs are, to try to make sure that we are giving them what they need or working towards giving them what they need. Our people, our people are in the communities all the time, but it starts from the top. I mean, Patty Poppy, our CEO, is always out there, always talking to communities. We restructured our company a few years ago into like a regional model, right? So we have regional centers. We have a VP that kind of, so that they're in the communities, they're meeting with the customer, they're meeting with the businesses, everything, every day, you know, hearing people out, kind of just to see what they need, what their concerns are, and trying to work with them to, get them to be happy with us.
Yeah, Jason, your company's on the front line of this too. How would you answer that?
Sure. I'd say education, and it's being available. All of our press releases, anything that we do now, it both comes in English and Spanish. And then we're looking to expand that out. Anytime we have an open house, we have interpreters there, whether it is any language, because Virginia is very diverse. And so we want to make sure that we're educating those folks who are coming in, but that we can actually talk to them and relate to them as well. So that's a big piece. Piggyback on Yvonne, it's being in the community. It's one, empowering our employees all the way up from a lineman all the way up to our C-suite, is that they know what's going on, and so when they're going to the softball games, the baseball games, the whatever they're going to, that they know what's happening in the in our company, that they can educate those folks when they have questions. That is one big piece, but it's also being supportive for those who are in need. We work through the LIHEAP and PIP program as well. We have a thing called Energy Share, where we put in an X amount of money every year, and it helps with energy assistance, and not just electric energy assistance. It's also for heating, for gas, propane, oil, but it also does weatherization for low-income housing. So I think it's just being supportive.
So, next question. Okay. And if we keep the answers real short, we maybe get a third question in too. So,
Okay. I guess my question would be something that like the public may not be so, I guess like urgent about, but maybe the industry is. And I guess the question would be, how important is it for the industry and I guess officials to address small things that could affect the industry big, such as like copper wire theft?
say that again. Address small things like big things.
No, small things that can make big impacts
Oh,
on the
copper
industry.
wire theft. Okay. So who would like to tackle that?
I actually bring it up specifically. I spoke to someone at PG&E and they had opinions about it. So.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's a big issue. I mean, equipment gets stolen all the time, which then means increased costs for our company. We work, closely with our local law enforcement communities. We try to do as much as we can to make our system secure. I mean, some of our plants or substations, whatnot, I mean, they're critical infrastructure, and so, we're famous for the Metcalf incident where somebody shot up our substation, and
That's right.
and it's been on 60 Minutes and everything. I mean, that is the most secure substation now in this country, and so and you're right. Like, people don't think that those like little things have much of an impact, but they do, and we're constantly on top of it, really trying to work. And sometimes it's our own people who are doing it, and so we do get these reports of how many people were like arrested now, or and so we're focused on it a lot.
So we're going to go ahead and squeeze. I'm going to go over the time limit and squeeze in one more. So.
Oh, hi.
First, tell us who you are, where are you from?
Yeah, Jay Rickey, Stanford University. I'm just, I'm curious. I know AOC brought up a good point the other week at an energy commerce meeting about, AI bubble possible, but then how there's kind of a few amount of actors that clearly are taking advantage of making data centers, possible in the country. Is it possible that other players like utilities can invest more in universities to kind of, build them some good research that can empower communities and local regions, so that maybe 10 years from now, maybe the majority of data centers, if it was in 50 states, actually was, developed by people and not just top corporations. Is that a possibility where, you could pay for your electric bill, but then maybe some of those dollars or cents is going towards the data center.
Does anyone want to tackle that?
Can I do that?
Yeah. Go ahead, Debbie.
I think that we need to understand that everybody's got their talent, everybody's got the things that they can invest. And so, when you look at something that's really large, you need somebody who has resources to use that and smart people working for them who can help do that. And individuals investing in something like they have the opportunity to do that as investors in a company or as investors in a nonprofit that's doing that work, or investors in helping schools with research. And the truth is, we do give universities a lot of money to work on various things, whether it's figuring out a fuel or helping us figure out how to scale up something that we're doing. So the university system is a really important part of the economy, and we look at things that universities do across the board. There is so much that they can do, and there's a lot they can do with government that we can't do because they are government entities, generally speaking. So I think it's a nice idea, but the way to do that is really through investing in a company who can make the investment and make the decisions, because you don't want people who don't really know what they're doing to invest in something they don't understand and then wonder why it didn't pay off for them. Their money is finite, and I think it's hard for them. I as a person, I'm not going to invest in something I completely don't understand and hope for the best, because my retirement depends on that. So I think that we address it that way. We do support a lot of the nonprofits that do things, think tanks who think about things in a really bold way, universities. We've had a lot of use of university partnerships over the year on everything from biofuels to efficiency and data management, because they're the people who can sit and study it. And we are not scholars, we're doers. And so looking at those roles and saying, okay, this is the way that it can work, I think that's more the way we would look at it. But it's interesting that she's got a different thought process, and I appreciate that she brings new ideas to the table.
Yeah, I'll chip in on that one too. I think that it's important to recognize that each of us as individuals have strengths and weaknesses, and same thing with companies. Some companies are good at providing power or energy, but they may not be very good in building AI data centers. So, I look at Stargate in Abilene, Texas. They're spending $200 billion, and several thousand people go to work there every day, and that pays, that feeds their families and houses them and provides an education for the schools and a tax base. And I don't think that everybody in Texas would want to have a charge on their electric bill to pay for that. I think it's better for the company that wants to make that investment on their own and suffer the risk and rewards of making that investment. That's kind of what our system works like. So rather than trying to have everybody be an expert at everything. So I think that's it. I want to ask you all to give a warm round of applause to our panel for their thoughtful questions. Marianne, I think it's your turn. Good job, y'all.
All right, so a round of applause for also our moderator, the Honorable Bill Flores. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And we always like to encourage at the end of these conversations, a little bit like we said in the introduction, we have the opportunity to be in this conversation here in Washington, D.C. So we ask that that you have this opportunity to use this information, to share it with your, in your community, share it in your social networks, because this is a privilege. It's an opportunity to be here, and so we want to make sure that we have the information to share with others. And then just to kind of wrap up, this is our last briefing and our last program for the year. So thank you to all of you for being involved with our briefing series throughout the year. For our panelists who are part of our board and our advisory council, thank you for your contributions and for your leadership. Again, congratulations to the interns. In about an hour or so, we're going to be, formally giving them a certificate. We also have one intern. I don't think she's here. She actually has already started at a full-time job. And so we're super excited for her. She just started this week with Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis. So we're super excited, and we love, that. And I get to say this publicly, too, in front of our board and our advisory council, that it's working. We're getting these students on the Hill. They graduate and then they get full-time jobs. So we're super excited and happy for them. And then last, happy holidays. Wishing you all happy Hanukkah, Christmas, and a happy New Year. And God bless. Thank you again for being here.